Hello, my name is Kelsey Forbes. The leadership team has recently requested that I create a Systems 4 management model for the new company. This presentation will cover the following topics. It will introduce the System 4 management. It will discuss the purpose of a learning organization and how it can foster positive change. The presentation will also discuss common mistakes and problems that occur if other management systems are used. It will also provide suggestions of best practices as well as recommendations for implementing the System 4 based management approach. Systems 4 management was created by Rensis Likert. It is a system-wide approach and consists of 4 categories ranging from authoritative to participative. It is a tool used to assess organizations' effectiveness based on the category they fall under. It's also used as a tool to establish which areas require improvements so the organization can develop towards the desired category. System 1 is exploitative. It is also known as authoritative. System 2 is benevolent, and it also has the authoritative characteristics, but it's not quite as strict. System 3 is consultative, which has more participative characteristics. And then finally, System 4, which is an entirely participative organization. This slide shows a table that features some of the characteristics of each category within the Systems 4 management. And we'll see that starting with System 1 and moving to the right, each system becomes more effective than the last. So with System 1, it has a hierarchical structure. Leaders do not interact with employees. Employee morale and well-being is ignored, and it has low employee motivation. System 2 still has a hierarchical structure, but leaders do make interactions with the employees. Employee morale and well-being is acknowledged, but it's not quite a priority, and there is some employee motivation here. Then with System 3, this is more of a flatter structure. Interaction with leadership and employees is often. There are incentives and rewards to increase morale and well-being, and it also has higher employee motivation. And then with System 4, this is an entirely flat structure. There's constant interaction of leadership and employees, and rewards and recognition of employees takes a high priority in this structure, and very high employee motivation going on in this last one. The figure in this slide shows an example of questions that managers might use to determine which category their company falls into. This figure also shows how an organization can have characteristics in different categories, but leaders are still able to identify the more dominating category for that company, and therefore the category that the company falls under. What is a learning organization? Learning in organizations means the continuous testing of experience and the transformation of experience into knowledge accessible to the whole organization and relevant to its core purpose. The goal of a learning organization is to establish less layers, with the remaining positions requiring higher levels of responsibility and initiative. Participation is a core component with a learning organization and also self-directed learning. Individuals must take an active role in pursuing their learning and career development, as well as self-management. Learning organizations. This slide features several elements of the learning organization and how they foster positive change. First, we have active learning. For example, instead of sticking to unchanging guidelines for tasks, employees are encouraged to find newer, better ways to do things. This fosters positive change because employees continuously seek out best practices. Having an inquisitive culture enables the organization to take on new opportunities. Effective teamwork. For example, having teams that are a mix of each original organization rather than keeping them separate after the merger. This fosters positive change because bringing together teams comprised of individuals with differing opinions and backgrounds creates innovation. Accountability. For example, allowing employees access to upcoming training sessions and letting them decide which ones are relevant to them. This is a core component of a learning organization. It fosters positive change because it requires employees to self-manage and seek out their own learning opportunities. And finally, empowered employees. For example, having managers support employees in taking on challenging projects. This fosters positive change because it is the foundation for employees to discover their full ability and grow through challenges that are presented to them in a supportive environment. Mistakes and problems of other systems. As we know now, System 4 is considered to be the most effective of the categories in Likhart's model. Therefore, the company should strive towards becoming a Systems 4 or participative organization. To demonstrate why this is necessary, here are a few common problems that may occur in the lower systems. First, we have low productivity. Studies have found that dissatisfied employees are more apt to break the rules and sabotage performance. In System 1, employees are dissatisfied in their jobs, and a large part of this is because leadership ignores employee morale and empowerment. Lack of innovation. When there is little rule variation and strict procedural guidelines, it hinders employee creativity. For example, even with System 2, which is slightly more effective than System 1, there is still a substantial amount of policies and procedures, some of which are deemed unnecessary. And effective communication. When employees are guarded during communication with management, this prevents fully effective communication from happening. In System 3, for example, where employees and leaders have regular interaction, they still communicate with caution, whereas in System 4, there is open communication at all levels, and it's no longer guarded. It is open and free. These best practices are steps that can be taken towards becoming a System 4 organization. In today's changing environment, organizations that encourage individual ability and hold employees accountable for achieving goals are more likely to succeed. So our first best practice is to encourage individual ability. For example, allow employees to make decisions and participate in the goal setting. Encouraging individual ability is important during this process because you want employees to be fully empowered. Knowing that all members of a System 4 organization are all viewed as equals, empowering the employees is critical. And next we have hold employees responsible. For example, give employees personal responsibility for achieving goals instead of rigid guidelines and rules. They'll figure it out. This just allows them to be a little more creative in their approach. Holding employees responsible is also important towards becoming a System 4 organization because it requires employees to kind of level up to effectively handle higher responsibility. This is done with the goal of eventually having a workforce that is entirely self-managed. Next, we'll look at full commitment from leaders. For example, a manager who is not on board and does not allow his team to make decisions will cause disruptions within the change process. Full commitment from leaders is vital. Leaders and managers will be the ones to drive initiatives towards becoming a more effective System 4 organization. If leadership and managers are not fully committed, then efforts may struggle or eventually fail. And finally, we have recognition. For example, set incentives that reward individuals and groups so that individuals know they are recognized, but working as a team also holds equal importance. Companies reward what is valuable to them. Companies that want an empowered workforce will take the time to recognize their employees. This will help the organization in transforming into a System 4 organization because employees will feel valued and know that their contributions have meaning. This slide features recommendations on implementing the principles of the System 4 management model into the organization. So first we have supportive relationships. And for example, you could ask leaders and managers to show empathy and relate with employees about difficulties with the new merger, while keeping in mind that they need to strive at keeping all of these interactions positive. And then make sure that the interaction happens often. So this recommendation is beneficial because it increases meaningful contact between leaders and employees while demonstrating support to staff. which all of these are the characteristics of a System 4 organization. And next we have removing barriers. An example of this is open door policies, where you can just walk in and talk to leaders or managers, obviously if they're not busy. So this recommendation will strip away barriers that keep employees and leaders separate. This is a step towards becoming a System 4 organization where we know everyone is treated as equals. And next we have the empowerment of employees. So let employees participate in setting goals and decision making. This recommendation will allow employees to have input in the decisions that will affect the new company. Therefore, employees should embrace the new goals and procedures, knowing that they took a part in creating the new flow of things. And last, we have recognizing and rewarding employees. So an example of this is to set up the incentives for effective individuals and teamwork that was mentioned earlier in the best practices slide. So rewards and recognition takes a really high priority in System 4 organizations. So therefore, by implementing the teamwork reward system and recognizing them, it will encourage employees to work together and therefore foster an environment of high interaction between members. And then also by implementing the individual aspect of that and rewarding individuals, employees can feel confident that their personal contributions are also valued. In conclusion, System 4 organizations are considered to be highly effective in the 21st century and contain quality characteristics. The learning organization is a continuous state of self-directed learning that will lead towards positive change and growth in the individual, team, and organization. When these two models are partnered together, they create a really strong competitive advantage. And the recommendations and information that were covered in this presentation will assist the company to work towards becoming a System 4 organization.